Welcome to the Local Marketing Source Weekly Update, brought to you by localmarketingsource.com.
This week's Local Marketing Update is brought to you by Scott Gallagher. Scott is the co-founder of Local Marketing Source and has become the recognized expert in providing online marketing services to local businesses. Follow Scott on Twitter at ScottGallagher5 and on Facebook.com/Scott P. Gallagher.
Hey, well, good afternoon, everyone. Scott Gallagher here. This is our weekly local marketing industry update. Now, next week's Local Marketing Source member call is going to be, where was it in my notes here? My gosh, it's going to be the next Wednesday, and that is May 6th at 4 p.m. Eastern. This week, I've got a little bit more to talk about with this new mobile updates. We're going to talk a little bit about Google's mobile-friendly algorithm a week later. And there's some interesting news between Google and Twitter that we're going to talk about and how this might apply and affect our marketing efforts and search optimization. Finally, a different study has come out about the different types of search queries. And this was an interesting piece of content that I wanted to talk about because it's not necessarily marketing, more so psychology. But we know marketing and psychology are very closely related because us as marketers, it's our job to have an understanding of what other people are trying to consume. I was just having a conversation about this in regards to interpretation and competition and viewpoints and perceptions and whatnot. And it's amazing how many business owners have a misconstrued perception of what their competition really is. I just having a conversation this morning of a major taxi company in Chicago, and he's like, well, no, this is our comp. I said, well, I have to respectfully disagree with you. And from my perspective, your direct competition is going to be those businesses and sites that are outranking you, but when you're going head to head, obviously these competitors are acquiring their leads elsewhere. So let's, figure some of this out. And wow, that looks good. But yeah, I digress a little bit before we start to get into some of this. But my point is in regards to searches, what the search engines have to go through and what us as marketers, what type of content we've got to create to address those different psychological needs that consumers are utilizing on search engines to come up with. In other words, these types of studies really help us create content, and I'm going to help you guys come up with some awesome content ideas. So when you're trying to create content for, speaking of content, here's a little tip as a case study, and that's what I'm going to talk a little bit about, is how to create case studies for your customers and use that content that others, publishers with super high authority in the industry are going to be begging to get that type of information. I'll get to that. Let's get through the updates for the week, and there's some news. Twitter has just fully announced full integration into Google come May. So anybody that's been around the SEO marketplace for some time has seen this come in and out, some problems, and Twitter basically shut Google down several years ago and said, no, you're not getting this information. Well, the fact that they're now giving the information to Google, do you think that maybe Twitter made a mistake? I remember saying 4 years ago that they were making a mistake because Google, Twitter's the interface. Google is the display portal, and Twitter was restricting Google of just displaying information that essentially was giving them massive exposure. It's arguable Twitter would have been bigger had they allowed Google this information. Google kind of just sat back and went fine, and they didn't fight the battle. It makes no sense to me. I don't understand it. I don't know why the management inside Twitter ended up winning that battle. Why didn't the others win the battle of saying, well, no, we should have shown it? I don't understand it. But anyhow, things have changed. Come May, Google's going to have access to the full Twitter, all the public tweets. And in turn, it's probably, and I'm going to go on record and say this, it's probably going to take SEO power away from the Google Plus network. You see, right now, I believe that the Google Plus network has an unbiased weight on skewing the rankings of the social factors for Google. But they had no choice to do that because of Facebook and Twitter. Their social network essentially it's failed. It's not a social network, but it was never intended to compete against Facebook. But they've collected an enormous amount of social data. Is that social data valuable? Well, they say they've got 250 million people on the Google Plus network. That's 1/4 of what's on Facebook. That's pretty damn big. And if they have 1/4 of the data of Facebook, they've got more than enough data to get an effective sample size with a low margin of error to get an understanding of the social paradigm. But who uses Google Plus as a social network? How many times you go and like that Google Plus button or compared to the Facebook button? How many times you go on Google Plus and share content? You might use Hangouts, but you're not using the Google Plus network. So we're probably going to see less emphasis on the Google Plus network, some further emphasis. We've never digressed, not once have we ever digressed with our social media strategy. I don't care that these are no follow links and that whole concept of follow and no follow, and I don't give a shit about that. A lot of marketers have just completely stopped using Twitter and Facebook for different means. There's certain businesses that are going to get traction with Twitter. There's other businesses that really, who cares? I mean, my chiropractors, who cares? I'm not going to go follow a chiropractor on Twitter. If he's a published author, well, then maybe I can get my chiropractic patients to do so, and we've done so in that case, where Twitter has been relevant for a chiropractic firm, but for most chiropractic firms, they're not. But it doesn't change the fact that it's very likely that Twitter content is going to be read, businesses are going to be seen, and businesses should be using this content, utilizing this channel, and it's very likely that the search engines are going to be putting weight on that in terms of these social factors and removing some of the weight from their own network. That's positive. That's good news. That's what we want to see. Mobilegeddon. Mobilegeddon 2015. Google's mobile-friendly algorithm. It was launched 9 days ago on April 20th. By April 21st, we were starting to see some changes in there. Let's just recap a little bit about this. I was speaking with a client this morning. Was it the same one? No. Yes. Both doesn't matter. And I was asking him about this new update. He goes, "Oh, yeah, I was reading about that Mobilegeddon." I said, "You were reading about it?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Where?" He said, "Well, CNN." I said, "Well, that's right. I just noticed it a few days ago." You know, Google's got, what? Last year they had 900 updates. They average about 500 updates a year. That's about 2 to 3 updates on their algorithm a day. And yet mainstream media, CNN, Fox, NBC, are all talking about this Google mobile update. Wow. My world is actually in mainstream news. People are actually getting it. I can call my clients up and they're saying, "Well, hey, what about this update? Whoa, I didn't have to tell you about it." Well, it's interesting because let's review a couple of facts here. This is one of the very first updates in history, in Google's history. I think it's one of 2 updates that we've gotten a 60-day warning for it. Google never tells us what's going to be ranked in an update, and this one, they gave us some insight into it. They didn't tell us specifically ranking factors, but they did say that it's mobile-friendly businesses are going to have priority. So they told us in advance. We got mainstream publication of it, and they told us that we had to make some changes. Add all that up into that equation. What does it spell? Fear. What does fear stand for? Well, false expectations appearing real. You know, after moving to America, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to any Americans when I say this, but this country is predicated on its citizens living in fear. Everything. Law-abiding citizens live out of fear. You don't do something not because it's not the right thing to do it. You don't do it because you're scared to do it and the consequences to do it. You know, where I don't want to get into politics, but boy, I was just about to open that Pandora's box. But the point is I believe that Mobilegeddon was based off of fear, and it was necessary to get people to react. Let's look at some of the results. Google then immediately, the day after that it was released, said we had 5% of websites in the last 60 days of the United States make a difference. With the average business in the United States that updates their website every 3 to 5 years, that means in one given month, you've got about a 0.3% of businesses that are updating their website. To go from 0.3% up to 5%, what is that, 3, 15? That's a 15-fold increase. To make 15 times the businesses do something on a scale the size of the United States is a phenomenal, astronomical feat. And they did it. And they instilled this fear. They accomplished a massive goal. They got the mainstream connections. They got people to make changes. They've got business owners that are talking to us as marketers. But what are the results? Us as marketers, we're concerned mostly about the results. Has anybody on the line can tell me that they've had a local business that they've been working on for a minimum of 3 months that lost rankings after Mobilegeddon? I want to see if there's anybody. My connection is lousy.
It's better now. Okay, well, I just switched microphones. But I'd like to know if there's anybody on the line right now that has been working on a client or working on a local business for 3 months or more and had a loss of rankings. Anybody? I didn't. None of my clients lost any rankings overall. Of course, there's the odd fluctuation here and there. You know, you may lose one spot, but then you get 5 more that increase it. But across the board, we had all increases. So you guys know I've been talking about this Mobilegeddon for a couple of months now, and right from the get-go, I've been saying chill. As long as you've been doing your best practices, and it all comes down to dynamic websites and page loading speeds. But guess what? There's a lot of local businesses that don't have dynamic websites, and so we're probably going to see this roll out a little bit slower, or not slower, over time, where those factors are going to become increasingly more important. In other words, I believe that the algorithm is still in place, but they can dial up the importance of some of those factors. What we did see some very significant increases. We have a client that we just started optimizing 2 months ago with a brand new domain 2 months ago, and the day after this algorithm change, or not the day after, but it was sometime this week. I'd be lying if it was the day after, but it was sometime in this last week. They started to pop in the top 10. I mean, talk about over delivering for our client. I've actually had to hold back, and I've told my content creators, like, we're not doing anything for them for the next 30 days. We can't. We're going to do something. We have to do something, but I mean, we're pretty wild to So, okay, I've given this time and nobody has lost rankings. Let me rephrase this. Right now, I've got live LMS students on the line. You guys are paying a big buck or a good buck to be a part of this membership. Let me help you. Is there anybody that needs help that we can go and take a look at and start to digress? Okay. Any LMS students that are having problems with Mobilegeddon, feel free to reach out to me directly if you're afraid to do it on the line maybe right now. Start to do searches, guys. There is stuff on the internet that's both opinions. Some people are seeing some mediocre changes, others are frantically frustrated. And ultimately, it all comes down to it. You know, I put something on the LMS group, and I'd like you to try and answer that. I'm going to put it on my main group, and I want to do a little poll because I think that SEO now, I think we could almost say that SEO is mainstream. You know, you can go and talk to any business owner and drop that acronym of SEO, and you don't get the deer in headlight look that I got, 10 years ago. It's pretty safe to say that, what do you do? Oh, I'm in SEO. That most people tend to know what basically that is. So how do we define it? How can you define SEO in one sentence? If you were to give one piece of SEO advice or SEO advice in one sentence, what would it be? I'd like you to post that on the Facebook group. I'm really curious and I want to hear public's opinion on it. I think it's a piece we're going to create and try to get into the industry to do some analysis. So that's really about all that I have to say today about Mobilegeddon. It's just not a lot that's happening. All right, some psychology, the psychology of a searcher. That's a great answer, Fred. I'll address that answer in a moment. Psychology when searching. I'm
going to switch back to this other microphone here, so I'm going to keep an eye if there's any problems. But, a search engine's got a tough job. A search engine, us as human beings have a tough job when we're trying to search for something to begin with, because I think in English, and I look outside, and I'm leaving for the day, and I have to make a choice as to whether or not I'm going to wear my jacket or not. So in my head, I ask myself, what is the temperature? I wonder what that temperature is outside. And if I want to go get the answer in Google, nowadays, if I type in, what is the temperature? Actually, I don't even know what result I'm going to get. But I'm going to assume that Google's going to know that I'm looking for the temperature of where I'm at. Temperature. So even Google today is not the best at figuring this out. It's giving me the temperature in Indiana. If I change my search location, I wonder why my search location is Indiana. So when you type in what is the temperature, Google says, oh, you're looking for the temperature. You're located in Crystal Lake, Illinois. Maybe you want the temperature for Crystal Lake, Illinois. Rather than me giving you a website, let me just give you the information itself. Boom, easy, done, it's gone. In other words, Google's taken the opportunity to answer that question. But then SEO, it all starts with keywords, right? And so we try to understand keywords of what people are searching and whatnot. And people have been trained by search engines to answer questions without a question. So in the past, if we typed in what is the temperature, we would have got a website website that was titled, "What is the temperature?" as opposed to just typing in temperature and getting that information. In other words, what I'm trying to talk about here is the psychology of asking questions and us as human beings of how we try to solve problems.
Giving up. Wasted $250 on shitty Bluetooth wireless headsets. Do you want me to turn this? I'm going to turn this mic on one more time.
Hear what it sounds like when I throw this headset and microphone right across the room. Hit my window.
There. Okay, can you guys hear me now? I literally just threw a $100 headset across the room. It was fun. I hate it. I'm sorry about these problems. I really want to get wireless. Because when I do these shows and I do this type of stuff, I like to move and whatnot. And right now I'm using the microphone on my computer, but that's done. Nick, I will never use it again. I won't use that one again. I'll plug in. I got a plug-in headset here. But I really got to figure out a wireless solution. Man, I got to move. All right. So we're talking about psychology here. I'm trying to get an understanding of what people are searching for. And interestingly, it was 3 years, where's the number 3? 3 years ago, 17% of all searches were a question. Now, 27% of all searches are a question, a 10% increase of people going and asking questions. In other words, this is clear evidence that the search engines are getting a much better understanding of the psychology of what we're trying to talk about here. Oh, what is that? Artificial intelligence, right? Artificial intelligence is a major piece of the internet. And we're not talking about predictive search. We're talking about items like Google Now. In other words, by the time I get to my computer, Google's got the answer for me. Or a search engine's got the answer for me. There's certain behaviors, there's certain thoughts, okay? When we start to look at facial patterns and recognitions, it's feasible that in the algorithm that those questions are going to be derived based off of where I am, what I'm trying to do, and what my behavioral habits are. Well, we're already seeing some of that in terms of personalized search on Google search. But once you start to integrate other devices like a phone or a watch, they're going to know a lot more about us. So I think that's exciting. I know that's going to scare a lot of people. But it's like, my beefs with the U.S. And while I love the country and whatnot, a lot of people are concerned about this Big Brother approach and aspects. And I say to myself, like, why are you scared of that? Why do you have that fear? Well, probably because you live in America and because everybody else is fearful of it. So this is the way you grew up and you say, oh, we don't want to be looked after. We want to be separate and independent. Boom, boom, boom. Whatever. If you're not going to go and break the law, who cares? I mean, the government's not concerned about what I'm doing. I can go on. In any event, I'm going to go ahead and answer some questions. I'll be back. See any questions that you guys have.
Well, thanks for watching the Local Marketing Industry Update. We've got these things coming out every single week. So if you liked with what you heard, just click the button right above me right here to subscribe to our channel. If you'd like to get a little bit more, right over here, go check out localmarketingsource.com. We've got free reports that you can grab. You can even register for a free marketing course to get in and see the portal. Or just go ahead and follow us on some of the social channels. We'll be around. Until next time.